Today, we're jumping in the time machine and heading back to a legendary decade, a period of just explosive creativity that honestly changed animation forever. We are talking about 1980s anime.
But here's the big question. Was it really a golden age? Or is that just, a bit of nostalgia talking? It's a huge claim. So we're going to look at the evidence. Let's dive in and unpack what made this era so completely revolutionary.
You see, the decade didn't just start, it exploded. And the spark for this whole revolution? A massive boom in theaters. Popular TV series weren't just for the small screen anymore. They were becoming these huge cultural events, drawing massive crowds.
And the perfect example of this is the movie trilogy from Mobile Suit Gundam. Released in '81 and '82, these films weren't just some lazy recaps. No, they were a genuine social phenomenon. They took a really complex story, refined it, and in the process, they pretty much cemented a brand new genre that would define the decade, the real robot anime.
And that leads us right into our first big piece of evidence for this whole golden age idea, the radical, and I mean radical, shift in how anime portrayed giant robots. This pursuit of realism created a completely new breed of machine, moving away from those invincible superheroes to something way more grounded.
Now, check this out because the contrast here is fascinating. On one side, you've got Gundam. It's this epic space opera, definitely influenced by Star Wars, where you have these special new type pilots in iconic mechs that feel like high-performance sports cars. But then, on the other side, you get Armored Trooper Votoms, which was created to be the exact opposite. It's a gritty, hard-boiled sci-fi with a Blade Runner vibe. The pilots? They're just pro-mercenaries. And the mechs? They're treated like disposable military jeeps. They break down, they get scrapped, they get replaced. That shift toward gritty, militaristic realism was a huge leap for the genre.
But the robot revolution wasn't just about getting more real. In 1982, Super Dimension Fortress macros hit the scene with a formula that was, well, it was completely unheard of. It took three things and mashed them together brilliantly. First, pop songs, where an idol's music is literally a weapon against aliens. Second, a genuinely complex and mature love triangle that's at the heart of the whole story. And third, these incredibly sleek, transforming robots. The combination was an absolute sensation.
And this really shows you how long-lasting the era's impact was. This three-part formula, the songs, the romance, the mecha, was pioneered by the legend himself, Shoji Kawamori. And it's this creative DNA that you can still see running through his work, even today, all these decades later.
Okay, so that brings us to our second piece of evidence. It wasn't just about what genres were evolving, it was about who was making the anime. The 80s saw the rise of the visionary director, the auteur, who started treating animation not just as some product for kids, but as a true cinematic art form.
And maybe no one embodies this spirit more than Mamoru Oshii. I mean, his own words just capture the mood of the time perfectly. He and other young creators, they wanted to challenge everything, to do something reckless. And that rebellious energy led to these works that just had this incredible, overwhelming power.
Oshii's 1984 film, Urusei Yatsura 2 Beautiful Dreamer, is an absolute masterpiece, and seriously a must-watch from this period. He took what was a popular comedy series and injected it with this totally mind-bending loop structure. The characters are literally trapped, repeating the same day over and over and over. It's this deeply philosophical film that questions the very line between dream and reality, all inside a mainstream anime movie. It just completely blew audiences' minds.
And the impact of the whole Urusei Yatsura franchise was just massive. It was one of the first to fuse J-pop with anime theme songs, which completely changed the sound for the entire era. Commercially, it was a beast, generating over 10 billion yen, and proving that a single character like Lum could have incredible economic power. I mean, the fact that a remake started in 2022 just goes to show you how timeless its appeal really is. All right, now for our third and final piece of evidence, and this one is a real game changer. It's all about how anime actually got to the fans. See, before the 90s, there wasn't a late-night anime block. You basically had shows for kids in the afternoon and shows for the whole family in the evening. This created a huge gap, and that gap was filled by a revolutionary new format, the original video anime, or OVA.
So here's the crucial point. OVAs completely bypassed TV stations. They were sold directly to fans on things like VHS and Laserdisc. And what that meant was creators suddenly had this unbelievable freedom. They could tell more mature, more violent, or way more experimental stories for a specific audience without having to worry about TV censors at all.
And this timeline just shows you how fast everything changed. I mean, look at this. You go from a TV premiere of Gundam in '79 to its theatrical run in '81. Then, just 2 years later, bam! 1983, the first ever OVA, Dalos, comes out. And by 1985, you have the first true OVA blockbuster, a title that proved this new market was absolutely here to stay.
And that blockbuster was Megazone 23. Just look at this number. Part 1 alone sold over 26,000 copies. Back then, that was a stunning success. It proved the OVA market wasn't just some gimmick. It was a powerful, viable business model that was going to fuel anime's creative explosion.
And what a story it was. The premise of Megazone 23 is absolutely brilliant and, yep, another must-watch classic. The main character finds out his entire life in vibrant 1980s Tokyo is a complete lie. He's actually living inside a massive, city-sized spaceship, and his reality is a 500-year-long simulation controlled by an AI. This idea of a hidden, simulated world would go on to influence countless sci-fi stories for decades.
So, we've looked at the robots, the directors, and the new way of getting anime to fans. Let's tie this all together now and really see why this legacy is so powerful and why it's so much more than just nostalgia.
So, back to our question. Was the 80s a golden age? Well, the evidence is pretty overwhelming, isn't it? You had a revolution in mecha pushing it from superheroes to tools of war. You had the rise of the auteur director who treated animation like real cinema. And you had the OVA frontier which unleashed this incredible wave of creative freedom. All of this came together to produce a decade that is just packed with essential, unforgettable stories that every single anime fan should experience.
And that's really the ultimate takeaway here. This wasn't just a flash in the pan. The DNA of the 80s, the complex mecha, the director-driven stories, the courage to tell challenging stories for adults, it's all deeply embedded in the anime we all love watching today.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty fascinating question. The 80s were this kind of perfect storm of new technology, creative rebellion, and an economic boom. So, given that unique combination, will we ever see another golden age in anime that truly surpasses it? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this one.